It's a strange thing, isn't it? Some of our most fond and beautiful memories come from being in the sun, watching our kids play sports, being out on summer vacations, just enjoying the beach and the lake and all that comes with it. But then, you look in the mirror years later, and you start to see these discolorations, sunspots, fine lines and wrinkles, leathery texture, and you notice these things are getting worse and worse year after year. Well, what if I told you you could keep those memories, but you don't have to have the sun damage? The truth is, a huge part of skin aging is really just sun damage. And we know that 70, 80, 90% of the changes occurring to the skin occur because of sun, and as a result, this video is going to be very, very important for you to understand how you can reverse much of this damage that has happened over the years. And especially if you happen to be around my age, 50-some, you know, those early days were spent mostly tanning and sitting there laying out by the pool. The damage comes later. But the good news is, no matter where you are on the spectrum, there's a lot we can do to reverse it. Hi, I'm Dr. Amir Karam, board-certified facial plastic surgeon and founder and creator of Karam MD Skin. And in this video, I'm going to share with you medically backed recommendations as well as my own personal experience in treating patients with sun damage over the years. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The way I set up this video is there are 5 categories that are commonly used to reverse sun damage. And what I did was I decided to rank them from 5 to 1. 5 being the least effective and 1 being the most effective. We're going to learn a lot about which treatments are right for you based on your skin type, based on your specific needs, whether or not you have melasma, and ultimately, the pros and cons. So, if you're ready to take back control of your skin, you're in the right place. So, let's get started. So number 5, the least effective treatment for treating sun damage is microneedling. Now you know from past videos I love microneedling. What is microneedling? It's where you penetrate the skin with a tiny little needles using a device. I'm not talking about RF microneedling. I'm not talking about Morpheus 8. I'm talking about straight microneedling. And why it's ineffective is because it doesn't do anything to treat discoloration. Discoloration is related to the formation of nests of melanin that come from deep within the skin and then rest in the epidermis and upper dermis. Melanin requires a totally different treatment to get rid of it and to prevent it from occurring in the first place. By penetrating the surface of the skin, you may break up some of these melanin nests, but you don't eliminate them. But what you do get with microneedling, which does play a role in the changes that occur to skin related to sun damage, is that you are stimulating collagen. When those little needles penetrate the skin, there's a molecular cascade that is signaled down to the fibroblasts within the dermis of the skin, which are the collagen-producing cells of the skin. And it tells the skin, hey, there's an injury. We need to mend this fence, if you will, and we need to stimulate collagen production, build and repair the skin. Again, that's a beautiful hack that happens. It helps improve the thickness of the skin, fine lines and wrinkles, but it does nothing to sunspots or discoloration. And that's why I gave it 5th on this particular list. But the upside is that it's great for any skin type, whether you're light skin, dark skin, or you have melasma. But you do need to consider this as an ongoing treatment, something that you do in a series and then continue on as a maintenance as you go forward. 1 or 2 treatments isn't going to do anything noticeable to the skin whatsoever. This is a long-term collagen play at best. Alright, so let's talk about number 4, chemical peels. And there's a wide variety of them. There's TCA, there's phenol, there's alpha-hydroxy acids, there's, glycolic acids. There's a number of different peeling agents, and what these are doing is they interact chemically with the proteins within the skin. And once that protein is denatured, there is a separation that occurs depending on the depth of penetration of the chemical peel. And the depth of penetration is associated with the type of peel you're having done and the concentration of the peel. It goes from superficial, light, medium to deep, and the most popular are superficial and light and even medium. But what you're doing is basically you're separating the layers of the skin. Once that protein is denatured, the skin will then start to peel off as a dead layer. And when it occurs, whatever happens to be within that space, whether it's pigment, whether it's some fine lines, etc., will be physically removed. So the skin will then look much more refreshed. Now there's also some peels that target a little bit deeper. They can go further down. So if a pigment happens to rest in the upper dermis, for example, you can remove it. But there's an inverse relationship between efficacy and downtime when it comes to chemical peels. The more superficial, the lower the downtime. Also, the least amount of change that you're going to see because you're really just removing the upper layers of the epidermis. You'll get a freshening effect. Now you go down to the light and medium depth. Some pigment may live in that particular layer. And once you peel it, that gets removed as well. So the skin can look significantly more clear, look more bright, and have improvement in its all-around discoloration because you've just physically removed a bunch of pigment along with it. Let's recap that: superficial, least downtime, least effective. Let's go to the other extreme. Medium depth, most effective, most downtime, and all-around best results. We're not even going to talk about deep because that's very, very hard to recover, but is also follows the same trend. You're going to have to make a decision based on where you are in terms of the level of change, how much downtime you have, and which one of these peels you want to use. Now, I'm going to say a caveat. If you're going down the medium depth chemical peel route, you need to be in the presence of an expert in this particular area because it's not as common as doing some of the other treatments. And you really need to read the peel. That's a term that's used to be able to understand how deep you're going because you don't want to go too deep because then you could get into scarring and some of these other issues. Another caveat is if you have darker skin type. You know, if you're olive complexed or darker complexion, Fitzpatrick, basically 3 and above, what you need to do is pre-treat your skin with a product like hydroquinone, botanical lighteners, retinol, something that is going to suppress the melanin production so that you don't get post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. That's really, really important, but ultimately, chemical peels can be very effective, but not necessarily the ones that have the least downtime associated with it. That's why I gave it a number 4. And if you do have melasma, stay away from chemical peels. I know some providers and some peels advertise towards melasma. Trust me, in the long run, this is not a good treatment for melasma. And in many ways, it could make it worse, which is exactly what you don't want to see happen when you already have some darkening patches that you're treating. Now that's also a very, very important point I want to make. That is, if you are not sure whether you have melasma or discoloration, make sure you see a dermatologist because almost every treatment you're going to have is going to be affected by that. So you don't want to do things that are good for sunspots if you have melasma. So keep that point in mind and make sure you know this going forward, and I'll talk about melasma, what you can do later on. And I've actually posted a number of very, very good comprehensive videos on this topic. And my wife, who also has melasma, has been very successful at treating based on some of those recommendations. Another very important point to keep in mind when it comes to chemical peels is that the results don't last forever. What you're doing is it's basically raking the leaves, if you will, under the tree, but there's going to be more leaves that fall. So, you're removing whatever you're removing, but you're not stopping the process. So, keep that point in mind as we talk about the best treatments for skin aging and sun damage. Number 3, let's talk about lasers, right? So, lasers is a little bit of a broader category because there are a number of type of lasers, categories. There's ablative lasers, non-ablative lasers. There's even things that are not technically lasers that a lot of people consider lasers that are used for sun damage. And I'm going to break each one of these down. Now, I did a whole video discussing the different types of lasers and what they do exactly. So, I'm not going to totally go into it in that type of depth, but I'm going to simply explain. Let's start with ablative lasers. An ablative laser means that it's removing tissue similar to a chemical peel. You're physically removing it through the process not of chemical dissociation that you do with chemical, but basically you're evaporating the tissue through a process of heat or a photochemical reaction. Okay? So, keep that in mind. The most common term you've heard is CO2 lasers.